To discuss the health and leadership crisis in Nelson Mandela Bay, I'm now joined by political analyst Dr Somadoda Fikeni. A very good morning to you, Dr. Fikeni. Thank you very much for joining us here on Weekend Dawn. It seems that there's been a lot of activity transpiring within the region overnight, but I think just before we get to some of the leadership dynamics that has unfolded there since last night, let's just look at what was announced by the president. On Thursday, the curfew, the banning of alcohol, the sale of alcohol rather at specific times, 4 days a week, in fact, and ultimately how this is going to impact the region, both economically and from a tourist standpoint.
Well, I do think that it's going to have a great impact because many of the coastal regions tend to host huge numbers come festive season. And also, they were hoping to recover from the economic damage that the earlier lockdown and restrictions, were imposed. But at the same time, the issue of it being a hotspot was going to dissuade many people from it in any event. And people were going to just choose other venues which they would have deemed more safer and avoided this region. So it's a catch-22 situation, but the impact and the damage is surely going to be there.
Now, Dr. Fikeni, we're also then looking at the increasing strain that hospitals and healthcare workers have also had to face during this time. And when we look at, with the increase infections and the daily numbers increasing within that region, ultimately, how is this also impacting health workers and the healthcare value chain again, as this resurgence has emerged?
Without any doubt, if you do have such a sustained crisis in one concentrated region, it means fatigue and carelessness may even come in. And you have also seen some of the protests by the healthcare workers. And it is at this point where it becomes prudent that you bring in a reinforcement from other regions, and at times even some of the military, medical, or health staff, because this has become a national emergency.
We're also perhaps looking at the issue of initiation schools and some of the issues that have been highlighted there, looking at how it perhaps, was cancelled from the region, how there are fears that it might move to other spots within the province or even other provinces, and how that might also ultimately impact the spread of the coronavirus at large. So when we look at the plans and contingency plans and strategies in place, how is this being handled as we speak?
I do think that at this stage, the only mistake that I can observe is the fact that the concentration is on Nelson Mandela Bay, whereas South Africa is one country where migration from the city areas to rural areas to their homes happens at such huge volumes. Without restriction or monitoring of that movement, it means many of the people tired of restrictions and fearful of Nelson Mandela Bay situation may leave the very same hotspots and travel to areas which were less affected. And by the time they return back in January, those areas they have visited will have received the same situation, and you may have another spike in those areas.
Dr. Fikeni, I want to then now perhaps also then move into the leadership issue within the province as well. So obviously just last night we heard that the DA's Ngaba Banga has been elected as the new executive mayor of the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. So when we look at the leadership dynamics that have also unfolded there, and many also questioning the legal muster that transpired yesterday, whether it's valid or not. What do you make of these dynamics, and ultimately what is he going to bring to the party after obviously having resigned from the provincial legislature earlier this year to perhaps take up this position?
Well, I do think that there's very little at this stage that can be done, especially when preparing for local government elections. Yep. Also knowing that the coalition arrangement and the political arrangements that DA had made had all but collapsed. and therefore he is likely to operate as a minority government without the major parties such as the ANC, the EFF, and possibly even UDM being on his side. And that in itself weakens literally everything he may want to do. And he may limp forward towards the next elections without the major programs that are needed. And this, by the way, weaknesses at a local government level also weakens the institutional capacity of the state to deal with the hotspot of coronavirus, because most of the bylaws enforcements are done by the local security officials and local municipal officials.
And so we can see how the leadership, or the issue of leadership perhaps, has also translated to the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in that province, in that region as well. When we look at some of the other challenges that the metro is facing, I mean, I was reading that the municipality, in fact, had gone for almost a year without grants from the National Treasury, amongst other issues. So in terms of some of the low-hanging fruits, what are the biggest challenges that he's going to have to face going into the local government elections and beyond?
Just stabilizing the administration at this stage, having the budget approved for the remaining part of the municipal financial year might be one big thing, and having the systems in place. And it would be prudent for the new mayor, knowing that he doesn't have that much of a political backup, to start having individual arrangements with the different political parties to support some of his plans, and even make concessions on some of the programs to make sure that he is able to weave a broader partnership with even erstwhile opponents, political opponents, that is. The next one would be to negotiate with the provincial and national government to intervene and assist in terms of resources and finances, including those funds which ought to.
All right, we seem to have a connection issue. We'll perhaps leave the conversation there. Political analyst Dr. Somadoda Fikeni just chatting to us about the growing concerns around the Nelson Mandela Bay metro. Of course, as we heard, that is one of the hotspots in the country. Dr. Fikeni, I do believe you're back. If you want to conclude on your point of some of the challenges that the metro is facing and some of the low-hanging fruits that the Ngaba Banga will have to face as the DA leader heads into the local government elections come next year.
I do think that where you do have a case of monies due to the Nelson Mandela Bay, which are from Treasury, that would be the first thing that he has to concentrate on. But also inviting other political parties, even the political opponents, to adopt his programs and make concessions with their proposed programs, so that you begin to have some functionality within that particular structure. And you will then begin to have some degree of stability going to elections, because right now, key is to stabilize and make functional the municipality.
All right. Political analyst Dr. Somadoda Fikeni, again, just chatting to us about the growing concerns around the Nelson Mandela Bay region, obviously with the rising coronavirus cases in the area.